Speak up. What racism is something that you can't unsee, you know.
Karen is a trailblazer who's not only reshaping how we talk about menopause, especially for Black women, but doing it with style, grace, and a take no BS attitude that we are so here for. What was the circumstance that made you say, that's enough?
Rage. I was angry. Amy Cooper. And then less than 36 hours later, George Floyd was murdered. I didn't know what to do with myself, actually. I didn't know what to do with myself. I know that. So, of course, menopause is way behind in terms of research. Then you add to that the nuances around race, around Black women, around South Asian women, around, you know, people from different countries. I can tell you that it's not a death sentence. And that doesn't mean I've had a great time. I've had anxiety, I've had depression, I had to leave my career.
Hi there, I'm Leah, and welcome to the House of Hormones podcast. Karen Arthur, thank you so much for joining us on the House of Hormones today.
It's great to be here.
It's so lovely to have you. It's always lovely to have you around. You are an absolute breath of fresh air. For anyone that doesn't know you and maybe hasn't listened to your podcast, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
My name's Karen Arthur. I am a 63-year-old grandmother. I'm an author, a new author. I published a book called Grandma's Locks, which came out with Tate Publishing and is illustrated by the wonderful Camilla Rue. I am a broadcaster, so I host my own podcast, Menopause Whilst Black, which is in its fifth year, and we've just finished season 8. I also have a radio show called Can We Talk, where I interview entrepreneurs and creatives and founders on their career journey so far. I'm an artist. I've had textiles work, displayed, exhibited, and I have a piece on at the Migration Museum in London currently. And I used to be all sorts of things. I've done lots of things.
I mean, it probably would have been easier to say, Karen, what don't you do? That might have been an easier question. But how does it feel for you being interviewed then? Because obviously with your podcast and your radio show, you're always interviewing other people. How does it feel being here today and me asking you questions?
Listen, I'm cool, you know, because I don't have to think of... It's not like when you're at school and you're having an exam and you have to like know the answers. Like the answers are in my head, so it's fine. So you get what you get, babe. I mean, I'm used to asking the questions. Don't get me wrong. So you might find that I end up turning things on you.
Over.
On the whole, I think. Listen, I think these conversations are so important. And I'm thrilled at my big age to have the opportunity to be able to not just get my point across, but, you know, share my story and hopefully make someone out there feel just a little bit less alone.
You know, you talk a lot about your age and you talk a lot about that with pride, as we discussed earlier. You know,
because I'm old, babe.
You've just had another birthday. I know, but maybe a lot of women don't like to discuss age. And you talk about it so like excitedly, and you always lean into the fact that it brings so much wisdom, and I love that you do that, because so many people you're scared to ask them about age, or you're scared to word things a certain way, and you're just so, it is what it is, like, let's talk about it all, you know.
I think, and let's be clear, we're talking about women here. We're talking about people socialized as women.
Yeah,
we are socialized to not ask a woman their age. It's supposed to be taboo, and lots of women do not want to reveal their age because age means old, and old is bad. I'm, you know, one of many people who were moving into this. No, we're not doing that. I'm proud to be in my 60s. I am privileged to be here. I know so many people who didn't make it. You know, every other day I'm hearing about someone who's passed who was really young. And I think that, and also I think more and more older women need to show up and own up to the fact that we're here and we are doing vibrant things and saying, you know, and just showing up and being as, I don't know, alive as we can. I think society is so fixated on youth. Youth is great, don't get me wrong. But the phrase, you know, wisdom ages, I don't know what the phrase is, but something about something being, wisdom is wasted on the youth, something like that. There's a phrase that is a little bit ageist, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but also I feel that getting older, yes, it comes with wisdom simply because I've been around. It doesn't necessarily, and age doesn't always come with wisdom. I know some really stupid people, but we're not going. You know, I think we all do, but I feel that as we age, especially people socialized as women, we have more knowledge, more experience. We need to be enabled to speak up more. And I really feel that, yes, youth is fantastic, but aging is fantastic too. And many of us don't get the privilege to be here. So I'm grabbing it by both hands, so to speak.
Well, I love that about you. You know I do. You've called menopause a superpower many times. I've heard you say this a lot. What what do you mean by that? And just because we've just discussed the age thing, what would you say to a woman in her 30s who you know has maybe the perimenopause journey ahead of her and it feels like doom and gloom, and you talk about it in such a powerful and inspirational way? What can you tell us?
I can tell you that it's not a death sentence. I feel like, I don't know whether I did say it was a superpower. Maybe I did. I mean, I talk a lot, but I will definitely say that it's changed my life for the better in that. And that doesn't mean I've had a great time. I've had anxiety, I've had depression, I had to leave my career, my 28-year teaching career behind. I've had, I split up with my partner who was, I was with him for 20 years and that was an abusive, toxic relationship. I've had a pretty shit time too. I should have asked you if I could swear. I've done it now. But also, I think all of these things, I wouldn't have it any other way because all of these things have made me the person that's speaking to you now. I feel like menopause gave me my voice. In fact, I know it did. I've always, up until a certain point, I got to my sort of late 40s, moving into 50, and menopause was kind of arriving, but I didn't know that. So all I knew that was happening was I couldn't remember to go to meetings and I thought I was going to get the sack, and no one was talking about menopause, and certainly no one who looks like me. Not that anyone looks like me, but you know what I mean. No black people, no people of colour. And anybody who did speak about menopause was had their head in their hands and was very sad about it and all doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom. Once you get a handle on your menopause care, I think that's the hardest thing. So for me, when I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, this is 2015. At first, I was at work, but I was signed off sick. So I was trying to get better to go back to work, which is normal. I didn't see life beyond working because I had a mortgage and I had 2 kids to bring up. I had a car and I wanted to go on holiday and all the things, So I didn't think I had any choice. I now realise that suits the powers that be for us to be scared so that we stay in work that no longer serves us. So I ended up having to leave because I couldn't do my job. And then in that year, my Aunt Monica passed away and we weren't expecting her quite suddenly. So I was dealing with grief. And I got very, very quiet. I went very, very silent. I decided for the first time in my 52 years on the planet to turn the gaze on myself and to look after myself and stop trying to look after other people simply because I couldn't actually physically do it, never mind mentally, So when I came through that, and there's, lots of stuff online about how I did that, I decided not to shut up. And I decided to share everything I was going through. So I started offline with my friends. And then when we went into, moved into COVID, I took it online and the podcast Menopause Whilst Black was born. But I feel I was never going to be invisible. I don't think anybody should. And I don't think we should be allowed to, I don't think people should encourage, that you expect women to get older, wait for your grandkids, sit in the corner, and also fit into the box that, whether it's the mother, the grandmother, the great co-worker, you know, that kind of thing. But you'll notice also that older women in the workplace become a little bit more invisible because life's hard, you know, and hopefully that is changing with more menopause education, more people who are affected and indirectly affected by menopause, because we're all affected in some way or another, you know,
Yeah.
so that more and more people have the opportunity to do what they want to do. For some people that might be working, for some people it might be leaving and starting a business, for some people it might be lying down, you know, but
Yeah.
menopause gave me my voice, not even back, it just gave me my voice full stop, because before that I was loud, but I think it was a bit of a mask.
I wouldn't
I think it
say your
was
teaching. You said, you know, you ended your teaching career. I wouldn't say your teaching career has ended. I would say you're
that's
still out
ooh,
there teaching.
you being all clever and that, Leah. Yes, that's funny. I ended my formal teaching career. I was a dance teacher. I have a performing arts degree, and then I moved across to pastoral teaching, and I ended up as head of house in a wonderful boys' school in Southeast London. And I loved teaching. I was bloody good at it until it didn't love me. But yes, I'm an educator, and
You are
given the
an educator.
opportunity, I will actually say when I go back into schools, because I've been going into schools reading my book, Grandma's Lock. So when I go into schools, it's actually a comfort zone. Like I'm so,
Yeah.
like people say, well, you know, I remember a friend said to me, God, this, you're going to be talking to 200 kids. And I'm like, yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
I can do that. That is not a
Yeah.
problem. So, yes, I am still educating in one way, shape or form.
I want to ask you more about Menopause Whilst Black. So obviously we heard that you started this, you know, from lockdown, and I guess I want to hear the whys. Why did you start it? I mean, it's so needed, but what was the moment that made you, and what was the circumstance that made you say, that's enough, I've got to start this? I'm assuming you started it from a place of trying to learn more and have more conversation and raise conversation, but in turn now you have become the educator in this. But what made you start it? Has your body ever done something weird or out of the norm? You've already went to the doctor, you've had your blood test, but you're still thinking, is this normal? Am I the only one that's dealing with this? Sometimes you just need to hear it from someone who actually gets it. And that's literally why we've created the House of Hormones Forum. Think your girls' group chat, but with an upgrade. The House of Hormones Forum is a safe space with zero judgment and a strong community of women who really get what you're going through, because they're going through it too. We're talking PMS, mood swings, cycle changes, cravings, all of it. And the best part is you've got real support with the House of Hormones Forum. So whether you just want to vent or you've come to ask questions, come and join us. It's given science meets sisterhood. So come and join the conversation at the House of Hormones Forum. We've saved you a seat. www.thehouseofhormones.com and just click forum.
Rage. I was angry. We were all in lockdown. We were all me personally, I was a fashion designer, and I was sewing. I couldn't go to my studio because obviously we had to stay indoors. So I was making masks for people. So it actually saved my business because I was making so many masks. And I'm a captive audience, and I'm online. And then we hear the news first of all of Amy Cooper weaponizing her tears against Christian Cooper in Central Park, birdwatcher, and calling the police on him and lying basically. And then less than 36 hours later, George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin, a serving police officer at the time. I don't know what to do with myself, actually. I didn't know what to do with myself. I know that stress can exacerbate menopause. I know that racism is a form of stress, even though on stress indicators, if you Google the stress forms, racism isn't anywhere on that. And I would argue that the case that actually needs to change. And I wanted to know, and also I was aware of menopause symptoms. I'd been talking about menopause for a few years, as I'd been talking about my mental well-being and leaving my job and anything else, And so I wanted to know how people who look like me, black women, were dealing with hot flushes, with their menopause symptoms, and also seeing people who look like our relatives, our husbands, our sons, our daughters, being murdered. Like I genuinely didn't get it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I remember it was also a time when everybody was trying to diversify their feed. So I woke up one morning and I had 400 followers, new followers, a lot of them white folks, on my main Instagram page, The Karen Arthur, where I shared my designs and my creativity and that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? The equivalent I've described is like waking up in the morning and opening your eyes and your bedroom being full of people looking at you, like waiting for you to do something. What the fuck is it? What is this? So that was weird. I get it. I understand it. But as I liked it. So I did a video. I went quiet on Instagram for a good few days, which is unusual for me. And then I did a video, and the video starts if you Google menopause. If you Google menopause and press images, what do you see? And everybody, to a fault, did it. And you got a white woman wearing beige with blonde cropped hair, with her head on her hands, looking very sad. And that's a stock image that some newspapers still use, which I think is bonkers. You didn't see people of any other race. You didn't see anybody wearing bright colours. You didn't see anybody laughing. Everybody was miserable as hell, right?
Yeah.
I was also very aware from my own research that black women start menopause 8.5 months and up to 2 years earlier than our white counterparts in the global north. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Why doesn't anyone know this?
I know.
Why isn't this? I don't understand. Like I didn't get it.
What I don't understand when we hear these statistics, right? And then I know you're going to go on to tell us more statistics,
Yeah.
but about how black women and women of color experience it worse. What I don't understand about this is I'm always baffled by scientists, right? Because you think of scientists as people who have a real passion. And to me, that's something that I would be like, but why? I want to research that. Why has there not been more research done on this? Because that is like, okay, that's not great. But from a scientist point of view, surely that's something that's so interesting that they would be like, I need to know more about that. Right?
But what do the majority of scientists look like?
Well, yeah.
What does the majority of the medical profession look like?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's 2 words, white supremacy. That's it.
Even if you weren't doing it from a place of, I want to make the world just and we're going to do that research. Like, even from a scientist, wouldn't you want to know what is the difference here? I need to learn this. You'd think, right?
Yeah, you would. But the other side to that is, where is the research about menopause? That's only just emerging, isn't it? When you think of how much research there is into men, and all the stuff that just trickles down to us because we're basically smaller men, so all the drugs that we ingest, everything that we have is because, it's been experimented on men, not experimented, sorry, the research is for men, and therefore that's what they're doing. So of course menopause is way behind in terms of research. Then you add to that the nuances around race, around black women, around South Asian women, around people from different countries. From a menopause symptom point of view, black women don't have menopause worse, but we suffer for longer and more severely from vasomosis symptoms. So, the hot flushes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they can go on for longer. Other symptoms, we don't know, And this is the problem, isn't it? Is that the research has to be there. And then you have to have the person, the researcher, they need to want to look at that. If they don't have a compelling argument, and then they need to get funding. And if they can't get funding from someone who cares about that information, it just goes on and on and on and on. So my thing was, I'm asking the question, and the video took off, went viral, whatever you want to call it, and so I did some research. So I knew that there was research into Northamptonshire Trust had asked NHS Trust had asked 22 BME, Black and Minority Ethnic women about menopause and HRT. So they basically wanted to know why BME women were less likely to take up HRT, which is still the case, by the way. And that was back in 2007, and that was the only research that had been done, and where they specifically asked Black women. Of the 22, 4 of those women identified as Black British women. So that's research. So I decided to do my own research. So I asked Black women based in the UK, what's your experience of menopause? What do you know? What don't you know? And nobody knew anything. They just knew they were having a rubbish time. And out of that, it became clear that they wanted some kind of information.
Yeah.
And I remember someone wrote, "We need a podcast." And I remember thinking, oh, someone else will do that. Or looking over my shoulder like, oh, they don't mean me. I was a fashion designer. I'm a mother. I'm a teacher. Who wanted, do you know what I mean? But I have very good friends who are very encouraging, who said a variety of things like, done is better than perfect. There are people out there with twice your confidence and half your talent doing things. Just get on with it. So I started to research. I bought a little microphone and I went on YouTube and I taught myself how to edit, and I emailed 10 Black women and asked them if they'd be on my podcast, and every bloody one of them said yes. And I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to do it now. So the first episode dropped on the 26th of World Menopause Month in 2020 with Pamela Windell, women's health coach, and we've been going ever since. So yeah.
That's amazing. And do you feel a sense of achievement, but also a sense of responsibility for all women in menopause, but more specifically Black women in menopause?
I always say that I wanted to diversify the menopause space, but my focus is on Black women. And I find it interesting because I get a lot of requests now to go on the podcast, and I'll click on their information, and they're not Black women, and they're often coaches or they're fitness experts, they're guys, they're young women, and I'm like, when I've got time, I will respond like, what is it? Like the clues in the title. But other times I'm just like, no, I want to interview. I mean, my USP is that I interview Black women.
Yeah, I know, you just cracked me up.
It's true. I get it all the time. I get at least once a week someone pitches to come on my podcast, and I look at, and they send me their links, and I look and I'm like, what? But I get it, and that's testament to the fact that I'm out there.
Karen, when we get off today, I'm going to send you a pitch for me to come on the podcast. Not only my wife, I'm also Irish. That's probably your white.
Yeah. So it's but I feel that yes, I feel a responsibility, but I want to be very clear. I pay for this myself. I am not sponsored. No sponsors ever come knocking on my door. I do not get funding. And as long as I want to do it and have the money to do it, I will. But I'm also one person and I'm tired. I have a wonderful team. I work with my eldest daughter, who's a digital marketer, and I work with Erin, who is an editor, and they're fantastic. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even be on YouTube, actually, because who's got time for that? But, but I've also helped to bring our faces to the world, in a sense, because I represent Menopause Whilst Black as represented in Parliament twice. We have been name checked by the British Medical Journal. I'm in numerous books talking about positive aging and talking about, about menopause and the nuances and the differences. And I think that it's important because everybody can listen to it. The podcast is for everyone.
Yeah.
First, I don't own the internet, but also you know, the more stories we see, the better and hear, the better it is for everyone, because
Yeah,
when diversity wins, everybody wins, you know.
absolutely.
And so, yeah, yes, I feel a responsibility, but also I feel a responsibility to myself. I did not come here to kill myself, you know. And as long as I love doing it, and as long as I love sharing, and that's not just my podcast, that's my radio show, that's the art I do, that's the book I've written, maybe I'll write another book, you know, all that stuff. I always go, once I left teaching, my promise to myself was that I would curate my life, the rest of my life, going where I love, doing things that I love, and where my voice can be heard. And so far, so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you're doing is just so important. You know, I think, you know, raising the conversation on menopause and perimenopause and hormonal challenges for
Mm,
all women.
mm,
Okay. So we were even talking about
yeah,
younger women. I
yeah.
think there is a big conversation around menopause at the moment. And of course, that's, you know, what your podcast focusing on. But we can't
Mm,
forget about the fact that a lot of us started our hormonal journey when we were
mm,
9, 10, 11, you know,
yeah,
whatever age it was. And lots
that's
of
right.
people haven't had an easy ride. So it was talking about those
Yeah,
experiences too, because the symptoms that you get through menopause or perimenopause are can show up in various ways throughout people's
yeah,
lives. They're hormonal
yeah.
symptoms. But just we know how important community is for women, and what you've
Mm.
done is you've given Black women a voice and you know, an opportunity, a community to listen more into other people's experiences, and it's just so needed. It's so
And
needed.
also, I feel like the thing about the menopause space and the thing about becoming menopausal is it's very easy to think that you're alone. And it's couched in a lot of shame. We're not encouraged as people who are socialized as women, whether it's, you know, of any, whatever gender you are, we're not encouraged to talk about the squeamish bits. We're not encouraged
Yeah.
to talk about sex. We're not encouraged to talk about anything that doesn't directly serve men. And so the menopause space has allowed women, we're finally being listened to. And now we're not going to shut up. I think it's really important to, you know, what's the phrase? Shame cannot live in the light. We shouldn't be ashamed of something that's a natural transition. You know, we shouldn't be ashamed of how we choose to care for our menopause, whether we decide to take hormone therapy, whether we decide to go in a different direction. We shouldn't be shamed into that, you know. And I think the more people talk about it, when we talk about vaginal discharge and vaginal atrophy, and you know, we use words like vulva and clitoris and all the words that we've been taught that they're bad words. Sese, Dr. Sese,
Yeah.
Talks with Dr. Sese has a wonderful campaign saying they are not bad words. You know, clitoris, vulva, vagina. Say them until they lose their power, their power to shame us. We need to be speaking up more. And for many women, many people socialized as women, that's really hard because we're unlearning decades of being told to be quiet and serve somebody else and don't talk about your bits and being a good girl and all that rubbish.
Yeah. I mean, we've totally as women been conditioned to
Yeah,
be like this.
they've done a number on us.
And to be honest, you know that you have been conditioned, and the way for everybody that's listening to think about this is if you feel uncomfortable saying some really normal things, and you like, I've actively had to work against my
Yeah.
natural instincts
Mm,
to talk
mm,
about certain things.
mm,
Even now, you know, talking about sex, it's not very natural for me. It's
yeah.
not because
Don't.
we've been taught to. We had
Mm.
Dr. Aziza Sese on the podcast.
Oh,
I
fabulous.
adore her. She is
Yeah.
possibly
It's
one of
great.
my favorite doctors in this space
Mm,
that talks about this, and
mm,
she's so fun, but also she brings so much to this conversation. She talks about her own children. She talks
yeah.
about her own experiences and her children's experiences going in and using words like vulva and being told in school
Yeah.
it was a bad word, you know, by
Yeah.
other children, and being shamed and embarrassed about things like that. And I just think for her to put herself out there and not only talk about her, you know, GP experience and her doctor experience, but for her to talk about her own experiences and her children's experiences, she is dedicated to changing this conversation, and I love
And I
that.
think it's also worth remembering that she's also talking about a culture within the Black community, which is very about, not being able to speak those words. We often don't speak about whether it's mental health, whether it's about sexuality, that kind of thing. And so I feel for Dr. Sese, it's been even more of a, and for Black women, it can be even more of a kind of taboo to kind of cross. But certainly menopause is obviously on many people's lips. Brands are taking notice. People are starting to talk about it. And I think it's important that we understand that these women deserve to be heard, need to be heard, and, should absolutely be listened to.
Why do you think that is, Karen? Why do you think in the Black culture it was more taboo to talk about that? Where did that come from?
I think society never allows people of across races to be truthful. We are spending all our time, trying to deal with and combat racism. We're spending all our time trying to live. But I think it's also it can be about religion, it can be about church. There's all sorts of things. There's trying to assimilate, there's trying not to stand out. My parents came over from Barbados in the 60s, and we moved to a small market town. And we spend my father was a preacher, a lay preacher. And so we spent a lot of time, it was either church or trying to not draw attention to ourselves because we wanted to do well. My parents wanted me to do well at school and that kind of thing. So the emphasis will also be on that as well. But everything always boils back down to the fact that we live in a culture and we live in a society that is inherently racist. And I don't apologise for saying that. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important that people really speak up, and also people who are Black who are speaking on our behalf, because often all the people who are being listened to, so
Yeah.
it's complicated, but it's also straightforward because you can trace it all right back, right down to medical racism. All the information we have in the medical profession is actually based on experimenting without consent on Black bodies. The speculum that we use for smear tests was invented by someone who, experimented on Black slaves who had in the dead of night. So we have to recognize that we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go for culturally competent care. We have a long way to go in terms of menopause care, but also anti-racism within that, because everybody needs to be treated equally and everybody has to have equity so they get the right amount of HRT if that's what they want. But also they're not dismissed when they go to the doctors, or they're able to have time off to be able to go to the doctors, So
Yeah.
we have a lot of work to do,
Yeah.
There's no getting around this.
Yeah.
And whilst there is work being done, I am still adamant that we need to do more around anti-racism and more around making sure that everybody is served in the way that they deserve.
And on that note, so the conversation is rising around menopause. The conversation is now rising even more around perimenopause. Here at the House of Hormones, we want to talk about everything. So whether it's periods, whether it's perimenopause, whether it's PCOS, whether it's endometriosis, what can white women do when they're raising their voices about this conversation, but to include, speaking and raising the conversation on Black women and their experiences? What can we do to further that conversation? How can we support that? So you've got a doctor's appointment coming up and you're just trying to figure out what the hell is going on with your body. You need our free symptom tracker. It's like the receipts folder for your hormones. You can track the bloat, the mood swings, the brain fog, the mystery acne, and then roll it all into your next appointment like a hormonal pro. No more being brushed off or told it's all in your head. You've got the data. Download it for free today from our website and start advocating for yourself. www.thehouseofhormones.com and head to our free download section.
You speak and you educate yourself, and you speak from a place of education. It is not about reading one book. It's not. I remember going back to 2020 when we had Black Square Summer, where everybody put a black square up and maybe read one book. What, I don't know, maybe they read Rennie Edo-Lodge, Why I'm Not Talking to People, no longer talking to white people about race. I don't know. Okay, the information is there, and I think we're past the time where people need to be spoon-fed. I'm past anybody who writes I'm listening and I'm learning, I'm completely turned off. Don't listen and learn. Go and read a book and then practice it. Speak up. What racism is something that you can't unsee. You'll see it in the way that the media talks about immigrants, about migrants. You'll see it in the way that Meghan Markle is treated when you compare to I can't remember her name, the other one.
Kit.
That's awful. You'll listen. You'll see it in the way that people talk about what's happening in the world now, whether it's to do with Palestine or Congo or Sudan. You see it everywhere. You will see it in your child's school. You'll see it in the way certain books are amplified, or certain teachings are amplified. So I think it's not so much what can white women do. I think it's always go and read a book. There are people on Instagram you can follow, but then there are courses that you can do. There are actual anti-racist courses run by people like Nova Reid and other people who will help you to understand your unconscious bias, because we all have unconscious bias, all of us, because we all live in this society. And so, yeah, it's great to be asked, but actually, I'm not here to teach anybody. I'm tired of teaching in that sense. I think we're all grown-ups here, and we can all do the work. Google is your friend, as I often say. So
What about
amplify those voices, absolutely. But also it's about inner work, and it's about, wanting to learn, and then applying that. Not just saying, I've read a book, or putting a picture on Instagram, and then suddenly you're anti-racist. It doesn't work that way. It's actually anti-racism is a verb. So it's a doing word. So it's about doing, and it's about unlearning and then keeping going. And I think all of us could benefit from that.
Absolutely.
That's my soapbox. I'll get down off my soapbox now.
What are some of the things that have changed regarding women and hormones and Black women? What are some of the narratives that you've seen have changed that are really positive for you?
When you Google menopause now, that picture doesn't tend to come up. That picture of the woman with her head in her hands, that doesn't come up. You get infographics, a lot of infographics. There's a lot of purple. I don't know who came up with that idea, but suddenly that's our colour. And so there are more diverse faces out there. More and more people are menopause is on people's lips, full stop. Not just people who experience it. Up and down, young people, older people, men, women, trans, it's happening. Brands are noticing it, of course. There's always money to be made. We still live in capitalism. But yeah, I think that's a good thing. There is research happening. People are trying to find out more, and they're also trying to find out about how menopause affects us, the nuances across, different demographics, and so on and so forth. So lots has changed. The fact that we're talking about it, it's all I talk about now.
Where do you stand? You mentioned brands. Where do you stand on this? I find this a really interesting conversation. I have my own thoughts on this. But a lot of people are talking about menowashing, and we've spoken about it a lot on this podcast, and everybody seems to have quite a different take on it, and it's really interesting to me. So I'd love to hear yours. What do you think about the brands that are coming into the women's health space and bringing out new products for that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing out a new product. I think what's meno washing is where you say it helps and actually it doesn't necessarily, or it's full of bulky. For example, let's take supplements. Menopause supplements are off the scale, okay? And some of them are very good, and some of them are pretty shit, and some of them are really expensive. I think that menopausal people need to have our wits about us. If you buy a cream that tells you it's going to make you, anti-age, which isn't a thing.
No, that works.
Okay.
That works.
Or you buy it because you can, it's like the word wedding, isn't it? You add wedding to in front of something and suddenly you can crank up the price.
Yeah.
And menopause feels like it's going in that direction. And I get it. We can't get away from it, until we decide to move to a completely different system, and that's not going to happen in our lifetime. Then people are going to make money. I get that, but I think it's up to us to choose what we buy and what we buy into. If you're buying something because you're scared of being left behind, don't buy it. No. If you're buying something because you think it will make you look younger, don't do it. You eat well, you make sure you get your protein in, you lift your weights, you do some exercise, you get a decent amount of sleep, you set some boundaries in place, and you drink your bloody water.
Drink your bloody water.
And listen, water solves a lot of things, by the way.
Yeah.
So I feel like, these are basic things that HRT is not going to give you, but HRT can help. I take HRT. HRT can help you if that's something that you can take. I know there are people who can't take it, and I understand that. But honestly, but get your basics right. If you're not getting your basics right, HRT, you may as well chuck it down the loo.
No, that's right.
Smear it on your cap.
The conversation is actually changing around HRT too, which you and I, obviously, we're in this bubble of women's health. So we hear a lot about it. And maybe people listening, they wouldn't, unless they've listened to one of our other episodes with one of the doctors who specialize in HRT, but they may not have heard. But, the tides are changing and shifting. But I tend to agree with you. Like, I've actually seen a lot of brands who are now doing the research that hasn't been done. What's wrong with that? Like, I completely agree with you, though, like with people just slapping on the name and throwing up the price. That's what I would classify as menowashing, and that's wrong. But if a brand, and I know like quite a few, but I'm not going to mention them, but that are actively taking it upon themselves to do the research into whether it's anxiety or depression or different things that are happening to women, and if they're going to do the work and spend the money on doing that and then provide us with something that genuinely does work, what's the problem?
As long as that research is not biased. It's like there's research into smoking is often backed by the people who make the cigarettes. So as long as that research isn't biased, I think that, no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because they've got the money, but they also stand to make the most money out of it, But I think that my point is that it's everywhere, and just take a moment. I'll give you an example of myself, right? Weighted vests. Every bloody person has a weight. Have you got a weighted vest?
Not yet, but I was going to get one.
Not yet, right? So I got myself into a tizzy thinking, oh my God, I need to get a weighted vest. I need to walk. Now, weighted vests, good ones, are a good 80 quid up, right? And then I'm thinking to myself, and then I had a lie down, and I watched a few, people on Instagram, and I thought, actually, I don't need to get a weighted vest. If I want to buy a weighted vest and wear it, fine. But actually, there's swings and roundabouts. There's ups and downs and pros and cons about whether you have a weighted vest to go. For those of you who don't know, it's literally like a gilet with weights in it. And it helps you with your cardiovascular and your osteoporosis and all your bits and your bones. And that's great, yeah. But my point is, I had to have a word with myself, because I was literally Googling, I need to get a weighted vest. My point is, the minute I thought I've got to get it, I needed to step back, because I don't need to get it. Do you see?
Yeah.
I do my weights. I do my walking. If in the future I decide, I fancy that, fine. I see it on sale, fine. But actually, when we're in touch with ourselves and we know ourselves and we're not trying to keep up with the next person who's also got, I don't know, a weighted vest or a bloody ice bath, inflatable ice bath thing, you know, or I can't think of anything else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's about knowing yourself well enough, you know, to have a word and go, actually, I don't need that, you know. That's what worries me, is that the
and
fear.
everyone's different, yeah, and it's about knowing what. But listen, somebody putting on a weighted vest, it might give them the energy to get out for that walk, or that might be
100%.
Everyone's different, right? So
Right.
it's about what you need, and it's about not falling into the hype because everyone else says you should get it.
That's it. And that's where I was going. I was like, oh, weighted vest, I'll get one of them. No, I don't.
Yeah. But listen, now you've mentioned weighted vests, I'll tell you. So Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who obviously you know,
yes,
is a big fan of a weighted vest, and
I listened to her, and then I listened to somebody else, and I was like, oh,
well, and this is it, right? But I do go for a walk every day, and the reason I haven't got the weighted vest yet is because I'm always too concerned about what I'm wearing. I'm like, oh, but I'm like, how would I put that over my coat or under my coat?
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got to drop the kids off. I'm not going in a weighted vest. Do you know what I mean? So it opens up a whole new world of, does it suit your life? If it doesn't, like, find something. But I think the overall thing that we're saying here is find the things that work for you. And unfortunately, women, when we get to a certain age, we do have to kind of have like a relook at what we're doing. We do have to have, you know, I bet you, well, I don't know, but I bet you didn't always do weights, because I know I didn't do weightlifting.
No, I bloody didn't. I hate it.
Yeah. You get to a certain point and you kind of need to have an overview of, and you know what, you can't do it all. So we do feel overwhelmed with, you've got to drink X amount of liters of water and your 100 grams of protein a day and this and that. Yeah. And it does feel like a lot. But I think the point is, pick what you need and do what you can until you can try and make yourself feel better. Because if you don't,
we are the blueprints for this, remember. It's new to us.
Yeah.
I feel like I started on good ground because I'd always danced. So I'd always moved. So what needed to change was the type of movement, if anything. You know, I'm running now. I never would have run in my 20s. I'm doing weights now. You know, I do mirror former Pilates, and I've got a weekly kind of plan as to where my exercise is going to fit in. So I would say I'm pretty fit now.
Yeah.
I was fit before though. And my diet was fairly healthy. I didn't know Listen, I never thought I'd be thinking so much about protein at 63. Like,
it's mad.
It's a constant search for protein. Is that got protein in it? But at the same time, this is a good thing. And so the 30-year-olds and the 20-year-olds watching us will start to do things around their hormones, with their diet, or around, you know, who they hang out with, what they ingest, how much water they drink, so that by the time they get to perimenopause and menopause, it'll be a breeze, you know? So we are trying things out. I think that, I mean, I mentioned weighted vests only because we buy these things and then they end up in a corner 6 months later, you know? And I know what I'm like. I love a fad, you know, but I also know myself well enough to know. And also, you know, I don't want to spend that money.
Yeah.
Someone gives one to me, I'll wear it. But honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to change my life.
Listen,
I don't think.
And you said you've never had a sponsor on your podcast. I can see it now. We put on Karen Arthur's podcast, and it's going to have a weighted vest.
I give you permission to call me out online if that happens.
I'm gonna get the producer of our podcast to edit this specific bit just to try. We'll start a campaign to get Karen Arthur a weighted vest. And if we manage it, I have to be the first white woman that's allowed to come on our podcast. That's it.
Oh dear. Wishful thinking, babe. Calm down.
You're so funny. So we spoke a little bit about the word anti-aging there. Tell me your feelings on that. Have you been feeling like your hormones are running the show? Been there? Same. Our ebook is your no BS glow up guide to hormonal health. We're talking facts, expert advice, and real life hacks, all in one gorgeously written download. So whether you're dealing with PMS, perimenopause, or you're just tired of Googling what the hell is wrong with me, grab your copy now at www.thehouseofhormones.com, and we've tagged it below. We've got your back.
Well, it's just a lie. How can you anti-age? We're all aging. I'm aging now as we speak. It's silly. Yeah, it's silly. One thing that's certain is we're all going to die, and we're all going to get. And what isn't certain is we're all going to get older, because I might not be here tomorrow. You might not be here tomorrow. And my point is that I've written I put something on my Menopause Whilst Black Instagram about, if we fixate on the way that we look, we're always going to be miserable, because our bodies are changing. You know, I am falling in love with the body that I have, which is okay. It's got its lumps and bumps, but it moves and it does the things I ask it to do. And if I drop something on the floor, I can so far pick it up and get back up again in a pretty, decent time. But I think when we fixate on it, listen, I spent 15 minutes a few weeks ago looking at the lines on my forehead. And do it, pulling my face back and saying, oh, what would I look like a face at? And then I have to laugh at myself, because my face shows my life, so I feel like the fixation needs to be more on what our body does, for us, what we say, how we show up, and the other stuff, the way we look. Yes, that's great, but if that becomes our focus because we're trying to stay young or go backwards in time, we're always going to be unhappy. I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it at all.
But do you know what? This is what I love about you. And this is what I loved when I first met you. Like, you just speak so candidly and openly and honestly, and you can give your opinion. But what I love is that you'll also say, but I fall into that too. Like, I fell into of being in the mirror for 15 minutes and criticizing.
15 minutes of my life.
Yeah, so you're not sitting here preaching and saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't buy the weighted vest. You're saying, oh, I nearly fell into the trap of buying that. And then I caught myself on and said, hey, hang on. Do you know? And that's the important bit to take away here, isn't it? It's like, be aware of what's going on. Be aware of, yes, you will fall into the trap of doing that and judging yourself and doing this, but try and take a step outside and look at yourself and understand what's happening there with the product,
because we're human, and because we've lived on this planet we can't not be. We're indoctrinated. We've been taught all these things through magazines, through media, that we should look a certain way, we should act a certain way, we should age, we don't see as many older women on the TV, all that kind of stuff. It's just rubbish. And so every day, I've stood sideways in the mirror and sucked my stomach in. I'm, like jiggling my bum and wondering where it's gone and why my knickers keep falling down. We all do it, and that's fine. And then I get dressed and then I go out and have a great time. What the hell? It doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you try to be your most honest self. What is it? Do no harm, take no shit. That's it.
I love that. Do no harm, take no shit. That's brilliant. Oh my goodness. What would you tell your younger 35-year-old self if there was one thing that you could kind of say to her? What would you say? I know it's such a cliche, but you know what? That moment of what we were talking about just led so well. I couldn't help myself.
Honestly, there's so much. Oh my God.
What would you say?
What would I say?
Protein.
Well, yeah. Actually, it would be about fear. My message to myself is about fear and feeling, and that fear and excitement are cousins, and that the fear, what you're worried about, and you're not doing, is worth doing anyway. I mean, I know the phrase is feel the fear and do it anyway, but I've noticed, certainly in the 10 years that I stopped teaching, that the stuff that I felt most scared about and done anyway have been the most fulfilling stuff, whether it was starting the podcast, starting the radio show, leaving teaching, becoming a fashion designer, becoming a model, writing a book, starting the Joy Retreat, all of that stuff I was really scared about. And then I did it anyway. And moving, I'd sold my house and moved from London to the seaside. I didn't know anybody here, I had no friends here. I'm having a great time. So I feel like once you, once you, once you remember that excitement and fear are the same, and your body doesn't know the difference, just get on with it. No one cares. They're not watching you. They're worried about their funny looking knees. It's like when you go on the beach and you're worried about everybody looking at you wearing a bikini or wearing your swimsuit, or they're looking at your jiggly legs. They're really not. They're thinking about their own jiggly legs.
Yeah.
They're worried about a sand going up the bum. They don't care. Just get on with it. Live your bloody life. It's really, I say that, but I also say it adamantly because I'm talking to myself. This is an everyday thing. Our growth is an everyday project. Sorry. So some days I bound out of bed. No, don't get me wrong. I don't bound out of bed. Sometimes I very leisurely throw my legs over the side of the bed, very gracefully. And I'm full of the joys of, and I'm not ready and I'm ready to go. And other days I don't want to get out of bed. And some days I have to go back to bed. And that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Your life is nobody's business but yours, And so if you can look for the things that fill you up, the things that make you smile, the things that fill you with joy, if you can notice the glimmers in the day, you will appreciate the privilege that you have at being here and being able to go through menopause, however you are experiencing it. I'm just really glad to be here. I'm just
So
really glad
you're
I'm here.
just so fun.
It's
Like,
great. I've got plans, babe.
I need for anybody that's listening and like maybe that hasn't had the absolute pleasure of meeting you, like but you do feel that from you. Like the second that I met you, like I was hugging you immediately, wasn't I? Like you do just feel that.
I was like, who's this? Hello. Who are you?
Yeah. Like, but just like your zest for life, you do walk into a room. I know you dress very colorfully, but even if you were like fully dressed in black, like you do just bring color. Do you know what I mean? Like you do just light up the room. And you just do really get that sense from you. And I'm just really grateful to have met you. And I'm really grateful that you've come on and had this conversation with us today. What legacy do you hope Menopause Whilst Black leaves behind for the next generation?
I want Black women to feel seen. That's kind of it. If I stopped tomorrow, there are over 80 episodes of Black women talking about menopause. That's huge.
Yeah.
It was the first of its kind. No one can take that away from me. But I want us to feel held and heard and seen. And and in a bigger picture, I'm someone who wants to live life fully, and I when I was growing up, there's no blueprint for my life. When I was growing up, I didn't see anybody who was doing what I'm doing. We're taught that you get your O levels, whatever it is, GCSEs, whatever they're called, A levels, go to uni, get a job, get married, have kids, die, whatever, But actually, you don't have to stay in the same job. You can do lots of different things. Not everything has to make money. Go where the joy is. Yeah. So my legacy is also to younger people to see an older woman, an older Black woman, showing up, being colourful, not being invisible, speaking up, speaking full stop, and trying lots of different things.
Yeah.
I didn't plan to be an author. I didn't plan to be a podcast host, but here we are. Who knows what I'll be doing in next year? Watch this space.
I honestly can't wait to say I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. Like, I'm a fan. So tell us about the retreat.
So my retreat is called the Joy Retreat Barbados. It's for Black women in any stage of menopause. I feel really strongly about us being able to have safe spaces to talk where we're not blindsided by microaggressions. It's in Barbados because that's where my family is from. And I wanted to be able to give back, this is going to sound really woo-woo, to my ancestors, to all the women who went before me, who went through menopause, didn't know what was going on. So I take 10 women to Barbados for 1 week. And I mean, they can do what they like. There's a program, but I also say you don't have to do any of this. You can just come for a very expensive rest. But it's about learning to rest. It's about having a space to learn to journal, to meditate. We do yoga every day. We take meals together every day, which is where a lot of the learning happens. I work with practitioners who live in Barbados. And it's just a beautiful space, and it's actually hard to describe. It's 5-star rated. And people have called it life-changing and transforming, and that'll do me, you know. I wish I could take everyone. And what I mean by that is I wish I could take more people. We're in our second year, so next year we're going again in 2026. So anybody who feels there's an expression of interest form on Instagram, The Joy Retreat, or on my website, menopausewhilstblack.com. And if you feel you've not been to Barbados, you crave the company of women who look like you, and you need some space to breathe and to be cared for, then the Joy Retreat Barbados, yeah, it's for you. And you'll know if it's, they'll know if it's for them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love
I'm
that.
actually very proud of that. And that was one thing that I was like, what the hell am I doing? No one's going to come. And I've been proved wrong twice.
Oh, I just love all of this for you. Like everything that you're doing is so amazing, and you just have created such an incredible community, and it's just going to grow and grow. You're an amazing person.
Really? Oh, that's
Karen
very sweet.
Arthur, thank you so much for coming on the House of Hormones podcast. I think your voice is so important, and it will mean so much to so many of our listeners as well in our community. And I hope lots of them will go. We will link everything down below, and they can obviously go and follow you and go and have a look on your website, and also listen to the incredible backlog of episodes you already have. Well, I mean, it's amazing how many episodes. When I know how much goes into an episode, it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you've done that. But thank you for joining us, and thank you for being such an incredible inspiration.
Thank you for having me. It's been blimmin' great.
If you enjoyed this episode today, don't forget to like and subscribe to the House of Hormones podcast. Your support really does help us reach more people and spread the word about women's health. If you want to stay connected, follow us on our social media. And here's something really important. We're on a mission to secure more funding for women's health initiatives. Sign our government petition today and help us amplify our voices for better healthcare resources and support. Together, we can make a difference. Thank you for being part of our journey. We can't wait to see you in the next episode.